Hey guys, I'm Messi from our weekly, and today we'll be taking a look at Archimonde in Heroic Hellfire Citadel. These tactics also apply to the normal version. This is a 3-phase encounter, and after 15% in every phase, Archimonde gains an additional ability. In phase 1, Archimonde can summon a Doomfire Spirit, and this spirit will put fire on the floor that will chase a random player around for 10 seconds. Every DPS should switch to the spirit to take it out as soon as possible. If you get targeted by the fire, you want to kite it away in a straight line. If you get hit by the fire, you'll take some damage and you'll receive a stacking dot. Archimonde can use the Allure of Flames spell to teleport the fire to where players are standing. The place the fire will be teleported to will be indicated by a smaller swirl, so you can get out of this in time. To deal with this, you can split up the encounter area into 2 or 4 sides. Whenever the Allure of Flames gets cast, you can move over to the other side so that the fire won't bother you. There's a bigger swirl that you will need to watch out for as well. This is caused by Shadow Burst. With this, Archimonde will knock players up into the air, and when they fall to the ground they will take a huge amount of damage. This damage can be shared with others though, so when someone gets thrown into the air, the bigger swirl will indicate where the players can stand to share the damage. So while normally you want to move out of swirls, in this particular case you will want to move into it. In addition to this, when it gets cast on a player, it will also be put on anyone within 8 yards of that player. So when Burst is about to be cast, have all ranged players spread out. The tanks will have to contend with Death Brand. This does a huge amount of damage on the tank and puts a stacking dot on them. This also summons a Hellfire Deathcaller, which will need to be killed. Once the Deathcaller dies, the dot will disappear from the tank. The Deathcaller himself will randomly Shadow Blast players in the raid. This will deal damage and increases their shadow damage taken by 25% for 30 seconds. In phase 1 your priority is the Doomfire Spirit, then the Hellfire Deathcaller, and finally Archimonde himself. Be sure to catch people that get shot into the air and move from one side of the room to the other when Allure of Flames is used. It's up to you to decide whether you want to split the area into 2 or 4 areas. We started out with 2, but in the end our preference went out to 4 because it meant we had to move less per Allure of Flames. At 85%, Archimonde gains an additional ability in phase 1 called Desecrate. With this he will summon pillars that deal AoE damage to the raid every second. You can't do much about it, but Irel can. She will destroy the pillars and leave behind orbs of light. Anyone can run over these, and they should, but particularly the tanks need to do so. When they do so, they will become immune to shadow damage and gain a movement speed increase for 25 seconds. The buff they give will trigger for anyone within 15 yards of the orb, so if anyone is nearby, they will also benefit from this buff. At 70%, Archimonde will go into phase 2. You will no longer have to deal with Doomfire Spirits and Shadow Bursts in this phase. Because of this, you can now stack up on the boss in phase 2, and you will still have to deal with the Deathcallers and Allure of Flames. Archimonde will gain 2 new abilities to replace his old ones. The first is Shackled Torment. He will cast this on 3 random players and each of their souls will become shackled. This will deal damage to those players every second until they are more than 30 yards away from their soul. However, when they do get free from the shackles, they will deal a moderate amount of damage to the entire raid. Because of this, you do not want all 3 of the players to break their shackles at once. Stagger it so that your healers can heal the raid back up. The second phase 2 ability is Wrought Chaos. This is a debuff that gets put on a random player, and this debuff will aim at another player. After 5 seconds, a laser beam will fire from the debuffed player to the aimed player. The debuff will swap onto that player and the process will repeat itself. This will continue happening until the Wrought Chaos runs out of stacks. To deal with this, you will want both players to go out of the group and make sure that there is no one between the 2 players. As a rule of thumb, we said that the Chaos players should always be on the lava side of the group. So to summarize for phase 2, you will still want to run from marker to marker, kill Deathcallers, let shackles be broken one by one, and make sure that no one is between the 2 Wrought Chaos players. At 55%, Archimonde will start summoning 2 kinds of adds, which will both need to be killed as well. The first is Felborn Overfiend. All this guy does is cast Heart of Argus and deal AoE damage to the entire raid every time he loses 25% of his health. Now this needs to be interrupted. Now because there are often other adds up when the Overfiend is up as well, we have a melee switch to the Overfiend even if there are other priorities, so that they can interrupt the cast. The second type, of which multiple will spawn, is the Dreadstalker. This hound will teleport to random players and deal damage to anyone within 8 yards and interrupt them for 3 seconds. The area they teleport to will be marked by a purple circle, so just run out of it. Once these ads start spawning, your priority will be Deathcallers, then Overfiends, and finally Dreadstalkers. If you're already killing an Overfiend when a Deathcaller spawns, you can of course finish it off. At 40% you will go into phase 3. You will no longer have to deal with any of the ads from phase 1 or 2, and he will no longer use Allure of Flames. You will have to keep dealing with both new abilities from the previous phase, however. The first new ability he gains is Demonic Feedback. This is an AoE that does damage to the entire raid, and does an additional amount of damage to anyone standing near you. So what this comes down to is that you have to spread out again in phase 3. This will mean that you will have to make sure that no one stands in between the two players with the laser beam. The other new mechanic of this phase is that Archimonde will use Nether Banish on the tank. This will put a debuff on the tank, and after 8 seconds anyone standing within 8 yards of the tank will be banished to the Nether together with the tank. Now this will also leave behind a giant pool of fel stuff, and so when the tank gets this cast on them, they should move to the side together with the healer and nearly half of your DPS. They will get banished and they will have to deal with what awaits for them in the Nether. I'll get to the Nether in a minute, but whenever you come out of the Nether you will get a debuff preventing you from entering again for a whole minute. So you will have to set up a group to go in with each of the tanks. From the pool of fel stuff itself, a living shadow will spawn regularly and they will then charge at a random player. If they reach their target, they will put the Devour Life debuff on them. This will deal a big amount of shadow damage and reduces their healing taken by 20% for 45 seconds. The living shadows can be both stunned and slowed. To deal with them, you will want your ranged DPS to prioritize these. Hunters with tier 18 Forset are by far the best to deal with these, because the living shadows move quite quickly. They move so quickly in fact that they often don't get slowed by the first slowing trap when they trigger it. In the Nether itself you will have to dodge circles of fire, take AoE damage every 5 seconds and deal with 2 different types of ads. Void Stars will regularly spawn and focus on the closest player. If the Void Star reaches that player, it will explode, knocking anyone within 8 yards off of the platform. You will need a ranged DPS who can slow and kill it to deal with them. The second ad is the Shadowed Nether Walker. You need to kill this ad to be able to get out of the Nether. Once he dies, a portal will spawn which you can click on to get out. The Netherwalker has one ability called Touch of Shadows, and this can be interrupted. It will deal a moderate amount of damage to everyone within the Nether, so you will want to interrupt it as much as you can. Now sadly we did not have any footage from the Twisting Nether. Once we do, we'll post it in another video and put an annotation in this one so you can check it out. So thus far in phase 3 you will have 2 groups for the Nether, your raid spread out, living shadows that need killing, and you'll be dealing with the chain and laser abilities. Now things are about to get much worse once he reaches 25%. At 25% he will gain his final new ability. He will summon Infernals that will drop from the sky. You will of course have to move away from the impact location, but some of the Infernals will also start attacking you, pulsing for some fire damage. Now you will need to kill these off, but you can't tank the one you're killing close to the other Infernals. This is because of the Eternal Flame aura. If an Infernal is 15 yards or closer to another Infernal, it will heal up. What you will want to do is have DPS tanking the different Infernals standing away from each other. Kill the Infernals and return to the boss. We stopped our DPS right before 25% when a group was banished in the Twisting Nether. To get them out quickly, we sent in more DPS than usual so that they could get out quickly. Once they were back and we reached 25%, we used Heroism to push for the kill. You really need to get through phase 3 as quickly as possible because of the banishments. Once you get to 3 or 4 living shadows spawning right after one another, you're going to be stressed into getting Archimonde down to 0%. Because of this, we sacrificed 2 players along with the tank on the 4th banishment, so that we could push for a kill. You need 2 other players to join the tank, because if less than 3 people are teleported to the Twisting Nether, Archimonde will heal for 5% of his health. And that will be it. If you can get through all of these mechanics, you'll have gotten through Hellfire Citadel successfully. If you liked this raiding guide, please comment, subscribe and click on the like button to help us out. If you would like to keep up with when new videos come out, but you don't have a YouTube account, you can also follow us on Twitter or Facebook at twitter.com/bbmezzy or facebook.com/wowweekly. Also be sure to check out our written content on our website wowweekly.net. For now, I'm Mezzy, and I'll see you again next time.